I get really obsessed with my projects, and that's okay, because I love to see the results when I put in 100% effort. And mechanically, my real-life Pochita is already a working chainsaw, but I need to turn this ugly steel frame into the cutest chainsaw ever, and then go over the top with some wicked special features. But I can't do any of that until I manage the extreme temperatures that are produced from his gas-powered two-stroke engine. The exhaust is going to be very close to the fabric on the outside, and it needs to be insulated so it doesn't melt his fur. And to do that, I'm going to alternate layers of fiberglass, which is insulating, and aluminum, which is a really great conductor, but it's non-emissive, so it won't transfer any infrared radiation out. And if I do alternating layers, it should give me an extreme amount of insulation on this to keep it from melting his fur. Happy accidents happen every now and then. This motor ended up being fit best in a position that actually perfectly separates the hot and cold side. If I put a panel in to separate the two, it'll draw cool air for the intake and the cooling, and it'll blow the hot air out of his fur on this side for everything that's hot. So he's going to be a little bit Shota Todoroki with a hot side and a cold side. Initially, my plan was to make this thin sheet of aluminum into some panels that would go in there, but I think that's more difficult than it needs to be. I'm just going to use some aluminum tape. Because aluminum is really good at reflecting radiant heat, and it also emits very little radiant energy, even this thin layer of tape will be a great barrier between the two sides. Hot, cold. I need something to hold Pochita's fur in shape since he's round. Otherwise it'd just be flat across here. This is hardware cloth, and it is what I think will be the best thing to get that shape for the fur to sit on top of. But to make this into a ball shape is not gonna be that easy. Or it might be, because I think I have an idea that'll work. Bowling ball. That was working in pretty well, but it got to the point where it was round enough that every time I hit it, it was unbending one side while bending the other. So I have another idea to use this. By taping the screen to the ball, it holds it in place and allows me to accurately form it with a rubber mallet. I'm using safety wire to attach these panels because I can draw the safety wire down tight, which forces these panels into perfect shape with the frame. And I need these to be accurate so that I can use them as a guide for modifying the frame to put in Pochita's mouth. I used more of that tape to create the cavity for the mouth, and I wanted it to be dark inside, so I used some black spray paint. But I could still see a bunch of edges of the tape, so I glued in some black craft foam, and that gave me the look I was going for. But Pochita's mouth is not just a hole in his face. He has a snout, and to make that snout, I used some snap-together plastic balls and reshaped him slightly to get him just right, and then safety wired him to his face. Then I attached an aluminum bar to act as his lower lip and some thin aluminum panels to make the transition from his snout bumps to the rest of his head. I mixed red paint into silicone mold making rubber, and then I poured that into a tube to cure to make Pochita's tongue. I went the extra mile making his tongue because I wanted it to look really good, because it is a prominent feature on Pochita. I used servo control rods that slid through tiny tubes that I had already installed in Pochita's mouth to get the tongue to sit in the right position. His eyes are another feature that deserves some very special attention since they are such a prominent feature. But because I didn't have the right materials and tools, I tried a bunch of different experiments to try to make some really engaging eyes that had depth. Long story short, every experiment that I tried failed. But there is a video on my Patreon of the whole story and how to make really cool eyes that won't fail. But for now, I'm just gonna take these failed eyes, epoxy some wires to the back side, paint the back white so that there's no more clear spots, and then wire them in place. It's time to put some icing on this cake, because when Pochita gets serious, his eyes are gonna show it. I got a system rigged up to the throttle linkage with some string and V-groove bearings that pulls on small metal rods that are shaped around his eyes, so that when I rev the engine, Pochita gets real serious with some angry eyes. But when have you ever seen a dog be angry and have his tongue hanging out of his mouth? Never, which is why his tongue is rigged to the throttle in the exact same way, so that when he gets angry, his tongue pulls back into his mouth as well. These special features are really going the extra 10% on this project to make it something really special. Unfortunately, they also caused a major failure. It's very frustrating to be trying to do very delicate work inside of this mess. What's even more frustrating is when you finally get the thing set up that you're working on and it works wonderfully, and then something else breaks. The cable that I used to go from my throttle in the handle that goes around the motor to right here and then attaches to this control horn just gave up. And it's so hard to pull that it actually has broken the connection point back here on the throttle. So now I need to take everything that I've done with cables and get it all out and replace it with strings and pulleys. Luckily, I set up the rear handle so that it could be disassembled just in case anything like this ever happened. And after I removed the top of the handle, the cable and throttle lever were actually okay. The only thing that had broken was the old E-clip that locked the cable sheath in place. So I just moved the cable back and then welded in a chunk of steel to keep it there. But after that fix, the cable sheath sat in a slightly different position, so I still had to re-rig all the control lines. And it all functioned again. 3 small issues I want to take care of before I do his fur. His legs had fallen off a couple times because I had just used some super glue to attach them. So I filled those connection areas with expanding foam, giving me hundreds times more adhesion surface. They definitely won't come off now. The heat vents around the engine are very close to his rear left panel, and I really don't want to find out if it's going to be enough heat that it would melt his fur. So I'm putting in a few layers of fiberglass and foil for protection. And then I also extended the gas cap with a hose so that he can be refilled from the top. And now there's just one thing left to do, and it's gonna make him look real. It's time to put his fur on. I taped up all of Pochita's body to create a template to be able to cut the fabric out to match. Unfortunately, it was kind of a waste of time because I couldn't get the fleece fabric I was using stretched around the template enough to get all the wrinkles out. So I ended up just attaching the fabric one small area at a time by super gluing it in place and trimming it back. It was tedious, but the result was worth it. I am absolutely tickled pink, or should I say orange, about how this turned out. I absolutely love the way he looks. But this is where I really get ecstatic about this project. It's not just a cutesy little prop of Pochita. It's a real functioning tool that's capable of massive destruction. Just how much destruction is he capable of? I don't know, because I haven't cut anything with him yet. So we'll find out next time. Thanks for watching.